My name is Dennis Rees. I'm a teacher consultant with the Arizona Geographic Alliance, and I would like to share with you a lesson called Cartogram of the Great Compromise, which was created by Marianne Polve. This lesson is aimed at grade 8 and high school and would take 1 to 2 class periods to do. One thing that teachers, when they're dealing with the Constitutional Convention, cover is the Great Compromise of 1787. And this was a big debate at the convention concerning large states and small states. But what is not often clear to the students is what was a large state and what was a small state. This lesson, using a cartogram of the states at that time, will help clear up that question. In the lesson, students will learn that a cartogram is a thematic map in which states are distorted based on statistical information, in this case population. The information that the students will be using is based on the 1790 census, and they will actually create a cartogram of what the United States looked like at that time based on the population, so that they have a better understanding of what made a large state versus what made a small state. We have 2 objectives for the lesson: to create the cartogram using the census data, and then use that cartogram to analyze the factors that went into making the Great Compromise. The materials that you need for the lesson are all included. We have a handout on the Great Compromise, a student note sheet, an answer key for that, a worksheet on the Great Compromise with an answer key, a U.S. map for 1787, the 1790 census data. We also have sample cartograms to show the students, a rubric for grading the cartogram, a website that you can get the graph paper for, and then if you want to use rulers or colored pencils, students or yourself would need to provide those. In the first session, your first class period, you're actually going to be doing the reading. You'll hand out the Great Compromise handout and the student worksheet. You will read together out loud the worksheet, and as that's being done, the students will be filling in the information on the note sheet. It's important that you reinforce with the students that they save this note sheet because they will be using it later. And also be sure to give the students time to fill out this paper as they're reading. After you've done the reading and the note-taking, you want to pass out the rubric for making the population cartogram, your 1790 data census sheet, and your graph paper. Tell students that they're going to be creating a cartogram. Most likely, they've never ever seen a cartogram before, let alone how to make one. So you want to spend some time explaining how this is done, what it is, and make sure they understand clearly the task they have before them. By showing them a sample cartogram, one that's based on the slave population at that time, you can show students how a cartogram should look and how it should be set up. This first example, which you can see right here, shows the 1790 total slave population. This is an example of how a good cartogram should look. You have a scale that is 1 to 1,000, meaning each square on that cartogram equals 1,000 slaves. The states roughly represent the size that they look like, and the states are geographically in the correct location. Then you want to show students this second model. This is an example of one that is not very well done. The scale is not correct. It's 1 to 10,000, which makes for a very small cartogram. It's too small, it's too far over, too near the bottom. It's just not a very good example of what they're going to be wanting to do. Their cartogram should fill as much of the page as possible. You go through your explanation, make sure they understand that their cartogram is going to be based on the total population that was going to be used for representation. Make sure they know which column that is on the census data sheet. Tell them that the scale they will be using is 1 square for every 10,000 people, and that if they need to, you round up to the nearest grid for uneven numbers. Also, go over the rubric to make sure they understand exactly what it is they're going to be graded on concerning their cartogram. They can then begin to work on the cartogram in class and do it as homework if it's not finished. At your second class period, you're going to give students a map of what the United States looked like in 1787 and a worksheet that goes with it. The questions on this worksheet will be based on the map. They're going to use their note sheet, the map, and their cartogram to complete the questions. They can do this in class, and it can be collected for an assessment. You can also collect their cartogram for an assessment, and if you wish, their note sheet. In terms of assessments and grading them, there are answer keys that are provided. If you're going to use the Great Compromise worksheet for a grade, it will allow you to assess civics, American history, and Common Core standards. Mastery would be considered 80%, which is 26 points out of 32 possible. For the cartogram, it would be 80 points based on the rubric and the points assigned to each section on the rubric. And if you use the student note sheets, you're going to be assessing civics, American history, and Common Core standards, and that would be 14 points out of 18 points to get your 80%. If you want to extend this concept with cartograms to other topics within your course of study, you could have, when you get to the Civil War, have students create population cartograms for the North and the South prior to the Civil War. You could also have them create cartograms showing resources or population for the North and South at the time of the Civil War. Here are the sources that were used in creating the lesson. We have Wikipedia, the census website, a government website that dealt with Congress, and then the last one is the website you can go to find the graph paper.